If your power goes out right now, do you actually know if your tap water will still work? Most people say yes without even thinking about it. And that answer is wrong more often than you'd guess. Here's the thing nobody explains to you. Water and electricity feel like two completely separate things in your house. One comes out of a wall outlet. The other comes out of a pipe. They don't look connected at all. But behind your walls, behind your street, behind your whole city, those two systems are tied together in a way that most people never think about until the day it actually matters. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why a blackout can mess with your water, why some houses keep water flowing anyway, why cities sometimes tell you to boil your water even when nothing looks wrong, and why even having your own private well doesn't make you as independent as you think. This is one of those topics where once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the basic picture. Around 90% of Americans get their drinking water from a public water system. That water doesn't just appear in the pipe. It has to be pulled from somewhere, like a river, a lake, a reservoir, or underground water called groundwater. Then it gets treated to make it safe. Then it gets stored. Then it gets pushed through miles and miles of pipes until it finally reaches your kitchen sink. That whole process, from the source to your faucet, is basically a giant machine. And a lot of that machine runs on electricity. Pumps need power to pull water out of the ground or out of a river. Treatment plants need power to run their equipment and clean the water. Some cities need booster pumps just to push water uphill or across long distances. All of that needs electricity somewhere along the way. So here's the real question this video is built around. If electricity disappears, does your water disappear with it? The honest answer is, it depends. And that's actually the most interesting part of this whole story. Your water does not necessarily stop the second the power goes out. A lot of water systems have ways to keep working for a while even without grid electricity. Some have water towers, some have backup generators, some rely partly on gravity instead of pumps. So a short blackout at your house might not affect your water at all. But here's where it gets serious. A long power outage, or one that hits a huge area, can start to cause real problems. That's when pumps stop working. That's when treatment plants can't keep up. That's when water pressure starts to drop, and low pressure is a much bigger deal than most people realize. We're going to get into exactly why in a minute, because it's honestly the scariest part of this whole topic. First, let's talk about something you've probably driven past 100 times without really thinking about it: water towers. Ever wonder why small towns still have these giant tanks sitting up on tall legs? It's not decoration. It's not left over from the past. Those towers are doing something smart. Water sitting up high has natural pressure just from gravity. So when a tower is full, water can flow down into homes without needing a pump running every single second. It's basically stored energy. The utility fills the tower when things are normal, and then gravity does a lot of the work of pushing that water down to your house. This is actually one of the reasons some homes might keep water flowing during a blackout while others don't. If your water comes from a system with a water tower, gravity can carry you through the first part of an outage. If your water depends more heavily on constant pumping, you're more exposed when the power goes out. But storage is not endless. A water tower holds a certain amount of water and no more. If an outage drags on and pumps can't refill it, that buffer eventually runs out. So a water tower can buy you time. It can't guarantee water forever. Now let's go deeper into what actually breaks down during a long blackout, step by step. Right when the power goes out, most systems are fine for a bit. Storage tanks and water towers are already full from before. If a utility has backup generators, this is when those generators kick in to keep critical pumps and treatment equipment running. As the outage continues, fuel becomes the next issue. Generators need fuel, and fuel needs to be delivered, refilled, and managed. If an outage stretches on for days, keeping that fuel supply going becomes its own challenge. At the same time, treatment can slow down. Water treatment plants use electricity to run filtration, chemical treatment, and other processes that make water safe to drink. If a plant can't run at full power, it may not be able to produce or move as much clean water as usual. And this is where pressure becomes the real problem. Normally, the water inside your pipes is under positive pressure. That means the water is pushing outward against the inside of the pipe. This is actually protecting you, even though you never think about it that way. As long as pressure stays high, it's very hard for anything outside the pipe to get in. But if pumps go down and pressure starts to drop, that protection weakens. If pressure falls low enough, and there happens to be a crack, a leak, or a break somewhere in the pipe, it becomes possible for stuff outside the pipe, like dirty groundwater, to get pulled in through that weak spot. Not because the water utility did anything wrong, but simply because physics works differently when pressure drops. This is exactly why cities sometimes issue a boil water notice after a power problem or a pressure problem, even if nobody has proven the water is actually contaminated yet. It's not always because they found something bad in the water. A lot of the time, it's precautionary. They know pressure dropped. They know that creates a window where contamination could get in, so they tell everyone to boil water just in case while they test everything and fix the issue. That's a pretty wild thing to realize. Your water can still be coming out of the tap, looking completely normal, and the city can still tell you not to drink it without boiling it first. Water flowing and water being confirmed safe are two different things. So low pressure isn't just an inconvenience. It's a safety issue built into how these systems work. Now, if you think this is all theoretical, let's talk about what actually happened in Texas. In February 2021, a massive winter storm hit Texas, and it became one of the clearest real-world examples of exactly what we're talking about. This event is usually remembered as a power crisis because millions of people lost electricity. But what a lot of people forget is that water systems got hit just as hard. At the peak of that storm, almost 2,000 public water systems in Texas were under boil water notices at the same time. That affected more than 16 million people. 16 million people being told their water might not be safe unless they boiled it first. Now, it's important to be fair here and not oversimplify what happened. This wasn't purely a case of the power going out and water instantly stopping everywhere. It was a mix of problems hitting at once. Extreme cold froze pipes and equipment. Some pipes physically broke from the freeze. Power loss knocked out pumps in a lot of places. Pressure dropped across large parts of the system. And on top of all that, roads were dangerous, which made it harder for crews to get out and fix things quickly. So the honest way to describe it is this: electricity failures combined with frozen equipment, broken pipes, and pressure loss to create one of the biggest water disruptions in recent American history. Power alone didn't do it, but power was a major piece of a bigger puzzle. And here's a number that really shows how tangled these two systems are. Research on that storm found that around 69% of Texans lost electricity at some point during the crisis, and around 49% experienced some kind of water service disruption. People who lost power were without it for about 42 hours on average, but people who lost running water were without it for around 52 hours on average. Read that again. The water problem actually lasted longer than the electricity problem for a lot of people. Why would that happen? Because getting the lights back on doesn't automatically fix broken pipes, doesn't automatically bring pressure back to normal everywhere, and doesn't automatically make water safe to drink again right away. Crews still have to inspect the system, repair damage, and in a lot of cases, test the water before lifting a boil notice. Fixing electricity is fast compared to fixing an entire water network. Now here's a twist a lot of people don't expect. You might be watching this thinking, none of this applies to me. I have my own well. I don't use city water at all. That sounds like total independence, but it usually isn't. Most modern private wells use an electric pump to bring water up from underground and push it into your house. So imagine this. You own the land. You own the well. There could be thousands of gallons of water sitting right underneath your property. And the moment the power goes out, nothing comes out of your faucet because the pump that's supposed to move that water has no power to run on. You didn't lose your water source. You lost the one piece of equipment that gets that water from underground into your house. That's the same core problem as the city system, just on a much smaller, more personal scale. You traded dependence on a big water utility for dependence on your own electric pump. You didn't remove the dependency. You just moved it closer to home. And if this idea of having another source of water during an outage interests you, there's a DIY guide called Joseph's Well that explores how to build a small system designed to collect water from moisture in the air. Actual output can vary depending on things like temperature and humidity, so I wouldn't treat it as a magic replacement for your normal water supply. But if you want to see how the concept works and decide whether it makes sense for your situation, I've put the link in the first pinned comment below. So at this point, you might be thinking this all sounds pretty concerning. But here's the part that should actually make you feel better, not worse. Water utilities know about this problem. This isn't some hidden secret that only a few people understand. Government agencies that oversee drinking water actually maintain detailed guides specifically about how utilities should prepare for power outages. These plans cover things like backup generators, fuel planning, energy efficiency, on-site power sources, and even coordination with electric companies so water utilities know what's happening on the grid side during an emergency. In other words, this isn't a situation where nobody is paying attention. Engineers and water utility operators actively plan around this exact risk. That's the whole reason so many towns still use water towers, the reason backup generators exist at treatment plants, The reason some utilities build an extra fuel supply for emergencies. People spend their careers thinking about exactly the scenario we just walked through, so that when the power goes out, as many people as possible can still turn on their faucet and get clean water. It's also worth saying clearly that drinking water backup power is not something every single water system is required to have under federal law, and state requirements can vary quite a bit too. That means the level of backup protection isn't the same everywhere. Some systems are more prepared than others. But a lot of places, especially after events like the Texas storm, have been pushed to strengthen their backup plans and prove they can keep water moving during extended power problems. So let's pull this all together. Your tap water is not some separate, independent thing that has nothing to do with electricity. It's the end result of a long chain that usually includes pumps, treatment plants, storage, and distribution pipes, and electricity plays a real role in a lot of that chain. A short power outage at your house usually isn't a big deal because storage, gravity, and backup systems can carry you through it. But a long outage, or one that hits a wide area, can start to affect pumping, treatment, and especially pressure. And pressure is the real hidden risk, because when it drops low enough, it opens a door for contamination to get into the system, which is exactly why boil water notices sometimes show up even when your water still looks completely normal. Texas in 2021 showed what happens when several of these problems hit at the same time. Almost 2,000 water systems under boil notices, over 16 million people affected, and in a lot of cases, water taking even longer to come back than electricity did. And even something that feels totally separate from the grid, like your own private well, usually still depends on an electric pump to actually get that water to your faucet. The good news is, this isn't a hopeless situation. Water utilities plan for exactly this. Generators, fuel planning, water towers, and coordination with the power grid all exist because engineers already know that electricity and water are connected, even if most of us never thought about it until right now. The point isn't that your water will disappear every time the power goes out. It's that the two systems are far more connected than most of us realize. And knowing that before the next outage puts you in a much better position than finding out when you turn on the faucet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.